do some talks, but
And take ayahuasca.
yeah, and take ayahuasca, yeah, and I could have taken it 4 times, took it twice, and I had the most extraordinary experiences. On the first night, I took it alone, not with the group, because circumstances, synchronicity, happened, and I missed the first one with the group, so I did it the next night on my own. And I took it, and basically they talk about ayahuasca and similar things taking you somewhere. I don't think they do. I think you just go to another level of yourself, and thus, if you are in a how do they put it? If you have issues, you can have a bad trip, and others can have a good trip. And anyway, and this was my first trip. I'd never done anything like this before, and I never have since. I've felt the need. But on the first night, it started to kick in, and amazing things happened. This lasted for about 2 hours. The next night was about 5 hours. But what happened? I'm lying in this round wooden big hut on a mattress, and it's pitch black, and there's music playing. And there's one guy with me just to oversee everything. And this energy started to come out of my heart here, right in the center of the chest, and I couldn't see the arc, but I could feel it. I knew it arced, and then here it was like someone was gripping my top of my head really hard. So I've got this kind of feeling going, and the energy was going out of here and into here, and it was like so powerful. Then the music player started going, switched off, and then it would kick back, and then it would switch off again. Then one of the strip lights, not even a light, but a strip light came on, and I'm lying there and I'm thinking, what's he turned the light on for? And I kind of looked up, and he was just sitting there. He was nowhere near the light. And then a second one came on, and then a third one came on. And, you know, there were 3 strip lights going while this was going on. And people go, well, what was that? And so much paranormal interaction, if you look at it, can relate in people's lives. Oh, it's a ghost, what's going on? Relates to electrical technology, things switching on or off or whatever. And that's because what we've already discussed. Because of the electromagnetic connection. This energy, this electromagnetic energy that was coming from my chest and into the top of my head, was affecting the technology of the lights and the music player in exactly the same way as when you drive in a car with a radio on and you go under power lines, the radio crackles, doesn't it? Because there's interference. There's a connection between one field and the other, one frequency and the other, in truth. And so this is what was going on. And so many things happened that night. But the second night, I took a bigger dose. And for 5 hours, I went into this massively altered state. Beautiful it was. And very funny. And this female voice, as loud as mine is now, talked to me for 5 hours about the nature of reality and the illusory nature of reality, and it was hilarious. It was painful, laughing. My stomach was, you know, it was just so funny as this voice took apart the illusions of the world. And right at
The god is ayahuasca. A lot of people mention her.
Yeah, well, they mentioned the goddess, but the goddess is
Within.
The goddess is awareness, and we decode some awareness in a female form, we decode some awareness in a male form, but it's awareness. It's a level of awareness. And when the voice started speaking out of nowhere, it said, we're going to take you to where you come from and where you're coming back to, so you can understand where you are. And it said, all you really need to know is infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is illusion. And in my mind, I went to say everything, and I got half of it through in my mind, and it said everything. And another great line, which I understood as the evening unfolded, it said,
I look forward to that book, by the way. The Infinite Love is the only thing.
yeah, that's right. It said, the voice said, if it vibrates, it's illusion. And if it vibrates, it's
What does that mean?
It's very, very powerful, because I went to not a place, because that's illusion too. I went to a state of awareness that night, which was took the form of a field, black. But how can something be black and incredibly bright? People will find that hard to believe, but it was. And that was stillness, still, and it was silent. And people think that when there's stillness and when there's silence, that they are nothingness. They say, what can you hear? Nothing. In fact, you can hear everything, because in the stillness and the silence, that is the all that is in its true infinity of all knowingness.
And purity.
What it is, put another way, it's all possibility waiting to manifest. You know, people talk sometimes in religious terms about the all that is, has been, and ever can be. Well, that's impossible, mate. You can't be all that is and never can be. And what is that really describing? It's describing all possibility. And people talk about the paradoxes of the infinite, as I call it, being here and nowhere. It is and it isn't. And they said, well, you can't be is and isn't. You can't be here and nowhere. You can't be everywhere and nowhere. You can, within all possibility. Within all possibility, you have to have the capacity to be everywhere and nowhere. You have to be here and there, within all possibility, or it's not all possibility. And I experience that as this still, silent, bright blackness. And what I found fascinating all these years later is when I read the book by Ibn Alexander, I think you've interviewed him, haven't you?
It's going to air on your network.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Ibn Alexander, who was the neurosurgeon who had a monumental near-death experience. And he talked about a deeply unpleasant world that he experienced when he first left the body, which he called the earthworm's eye view, or something close to that.
Very muddy area.
Yeah, in which he talked about reptilian-type entities pushing against him, and he was describing the world. It's another interview, really, but I go into this in detail in the Perception Deception. He was describing the world from which the entities I've been talking about manipulate this world. But then he goes through what he calls the gate, and he sees another world, another earth, very, very different to this one. Bright, vibrant, joy. What he was describing was the world that this is supposed to be, because this is not the world that it's supposed to be. This is a hacked, using computer terms, and it's very appropriate, this is a hacked version of the world as it should be. It's a distorted, hacked, bad copy, and I explain in Perception Deception all about that in great detail. But then he goes on, and he describes this incredible, basically still silent,
all-knowing. I mean, like.
And what did how did he describe it? The dazzling darkness. It's exactly what I experienced. What I called a few minutes ago something that was dark but brilliant. The bright blackness. I mean, that's just. When he called it the dazzling darkness, I thought, yes, even mate, I've been there. And when I came back to England, and And I had absolute total recall of all that was said to me. I wrote a book, started writing a book called Infinite Love is the Only Truth, Everything Else is Illusion. But what I did do is I started to look within science and quantum physics at how the illusory nature of our reality had been explained to me in the ayahuasca state. And what I found was that mainstream science has already got the information to show that this is absolutely true. But what mainstream science does, and this is how society is structured to stop the picture coming out, science works on disciplines. It's this discipline, biology, it's this discipline, whatever. And they're all focused. The microscope is obviously a great symbol of science, but it actually is far greater than people imagine a symbol of science, because science is basically looking down a microscope. Biology, all this and all these different disciplines. And there's an ology for everything. And they're focused on one dot. They're focused on the funding for their dot, prominence for their dot, and all this stuff. But they're focused on a dot. And you don't see a picture by looking at a dot. You see a picture by joining the dots, and then you see what the picture is. But no one in science, and the funding and everything is designed specifically to stop this happening. The information's there, but it's not joining the dots. And if it joined the dots, it would say, this is an illusion. Yes, it is. And it's fascinating to me now. I've been written about this for all these years. There's now some scientific projects and studies. There's one at the University of Bonn in Germany, I think, where they are investigating whether the universe is actually holographic. And I left school at 15 to play football, professional football. I never took a major exam in my life, and I never read a book from start to finish till even at school, till I was about 21. And I've been able to put all these books together and all this information together without going near a college or near a university. Why? Because there's two types of intelligence. There is illusory intelligence, which is what we call the intellect, and there is real intelligence, which I call innate intelligence, knowing. The intellect worships the school, the college, the university, because it is persuaded that's how you become clever. No, that is how you become programmed. Innate intelligence doesn't actually come from here, it comes from here. And if you expand your mind, like I've talked about, and you break out of the bubble, you start accessing insights that are way beyond anything that is ever taught in the schools, which are basically places where the boxes are formed. And people have talked about Leonardo da Vinci and all the incredible inventions he made and all the incredible things that he did. They talk about another guy called Giordano Bruno, who was born in Italy not long after Da Vinci died, and Bruno was way ahead of his time. He was burnt at the stake in the end by the Roman Church for having the audacity to say that actually the universe is made up of multiple worlds, and he was way ahead of his time. But that's what people say. They say Bruno and Da Vinci and people like them, they were 500 years ahead of their time. And Da Vinci actually literally was in time terms, because some of the things that he was working with actually were officially invented like 500 years later. But they weren't ahead of their time. They weren't. These people, these great geniuses of history that were way ahead of our perception of time, they weren't ahead of time. They were beyond time. Because time and space are illusions of this reality, this decoded illusory reality. As if you're doing something you really love, time flies. If you don't like the dentist and you're sitting in the dentist's waiting room waiting to go in, time goes very, very slowly. In the chair it goes even slower. So as Einstein put it, to paraphrase him, You know, if you put your hand in boiling water, time passes slowly. If you're in the company of a beautiful woman, in his words, time passes very quickly. So who's deciding how that time passes? The way you are reading reality. It's all, time is an illusion. So, but time is part of this
Equation.
this construct, this holographic construct. And this is where the box is. What the Da Vincis and the Brunos and their like throughout history have done is they've expanded their awareness beyond this reality, thus beyond the illusions of time, into those places, into those levels of reality and awareness where insight is possible that is far beyond this world. So therefore, they are perceived as incredibly ahead of their time, when actually they're not. They're going beyond time to get the information that is perceived to be ahead of its time. And I remember, you know, I've got a great friend in South Africa called Credo Mutwa, who is in his 90s now, is an incredible Zulu shaman, high shaman. And he said to me once, he said, I go to my silent cave, dazzling darkness, silent cave, silent stillness. And he said, at that point, past, present, and future all become one. Because he was throwing the what people call the stones. He was throwing these symbols where he reads reality from. A bit like tarot cards, their version of tarot cards. And I was talking to him, and he said, yes. I said, how do you get this? And he said, well, because they read things from where they fell in relation to each other. And he said, I go to my silent cave where past, present, and future become one. And at that point, the stones talk to me. How is that possible? Because how can you communicate with mountains? How can you communicate with trees? Because the tree you see is a hologram. The mountain that you see is a denser hologram. But the mountain is alive because it is part of the field. The tree is alive because it's part of the field. And if you can connect through the heart, which is the connector of all things, to these energetic awareness levels of these apparently inanimate objects, you can communicate with them and they can communicate with you. And when people say they talk to animals or talk to plants, you can't talk to plants, they don't know the language. That's not the level you're talking to them at. You know what, I'm talking to you now. There's no words that we're hearing passing between us. What's passing between us is an vibratory information field which your ears, anyone listening here now, take from vibrational into electrical, which is transferred to the brain in an electrical form. It's the same information transferred electrically to the brain, and the brain takes that information and turns it into what we call language. It's that simple. So we are not communicating through words in the language that we think. We're communicating through vibrational information fields. Now, when the plant, which is an energetic field, an information awareness field, it can decode at that level this information field. And it won't hear me say, you know, hello plant, how are you? And it won't hear me say that. It will get the feel of the information, whether I am a threat or whether I'm not, whether I have love for that plant or whether I have malevolence. And there was some experiments done, fascinating, where they put electrodes onto a plant. They got someone to walk in the room and scream abuse at the plant, and they took the reaction, electrical reaction. They got someone to come in and be loving to the plant, and they took the electrical reaction coming off the plant. And the difference was fantastic. Then they got the guy who hurled abuse to come back in the room. The moment he entered the room, the plant reacted electrically because it has awareness. Everything has awareness because everything in the end is an expression of one infinite consciousness. Therefore, what we call David Icke is merely a current point of attention within that infinite awareness. It's not that we are expressions of that awareness. It's not even that we are creations of that awareness. We are that awareness. And we back to that line. If it vibrates, it's illusion. If it vibrates, it's illusion, because the vibration is the realm of form, and form is created from the imagination of infinite awareness in all its infinite expressions and points of attention. But that which creates it is the still, or that which it comes out of is the still, silent, all possibility. For instance, if we have silence and then I start talking, as I'm talking, I've pulled a possibility out of the still, silent, all possibility. And when I stop talking, it goes back again. And everything in this world is topsy-turvy. And we think that for something to exist, we must see it, we must hear it, we must taste it, we must smell it. It's that, but that's the world of illusion.
But we're having a ball broadcasting this information, for example, and you're going to have a ball creating this and airing very soon. Actually, by the time this video airs, it will have already started. The people's voice will have aired, you know? So how is that making a difference, or which vibrational standpoint, or how do you want to broadcast it so it really is different, or maybe recreates a balance between the current big medias and this? I mean, what's your, so that we can wrap up this conversation beautifully with everything that you said and where you're at?
Well, what we're setting out to do here is to communicate suppressed information that doesn't get into the mainstream, information that is, if it does, reflex action, ridiculed and dismissed. And we're going to give it respect, and we're going to give it time, and we're going to give it dignity. And in the end, truth has a power that cannot be stopped. And
like a lion.
And when people hear it, it does something to them. I've seen it, because it's a vibration, and they might dismiss it. They might dismiss it, but immediately. Oh no, mate, it does something. As I have this phrase, you can't unhear something. And what we're going to do is give all these different areas of suppressed information the nature of reality, what we've been talking about here. The paranormal, which is not paranormal at all, it's just perfectly normal. It only becomes paranormal because of the ignorance of this world of reality. We're going to talk about alternative ways of health. We're going to talk about the way the world's really manipulated and to what end, and why that event and that event and that event are not are operating in isolation, but they are connected, and this is the way they're connected. So we're going to be letting information free to flow on the scale and across, this is the great thing, across the spectrum of subjects that we're going to cover, like no one's ever done before. And it's brilliant to work here, because most of the people working here are not being paid. We want to get to the point where that does happen, because the station becomes successful. I'm not being paid. I will not be paid. I've said from the start, I will not take a penny from this station, and I never will. But that means that, and the people that are being paid, television professionals and stuff, are being paid a very, very much less than they would if they went in the mainstream, which they could. So what that means is you're working with people who are here because they want to be here, because they want to make a difference, and they share the ethos of what we're trying to do, and that means that, and we've seen it so many times since we started. You know, if you want something to serve you, when something goes wrong and it don't serve you in the way you would like it to, you know, the dummy gets thrown out the pram, the dolly gets thrown out the pram, and I'm not doing this, all that stuff. But when you're here because you want to be here, because you want to make a difference, and you can see how this can make a difference, then when you have a challenge or something doesn't happen that you would rather that didn't happen, you don't throw your dolly out the pram. You say, look, bottom line, this has to work. Because I tell you, if this doesn't work, then we are in serious trouble in terms of the communication of information, because the lid is being closed down, not least in this country, more and more fiercely, but around the world too, on what can and cannot be communicated, and by whom and when. So when you've got that ethos, you've got that desire. When you have a problem, sometimes you think, well, how do we get around this one? You get around it. You know, we had a bill to build a set in that studio, and the top line was £30,000. The bottom line was £10,000. Forget it, mate. We can't do. What are we going to do? Well, we got no set. We'll build it ourselves, and that's what some amazing people have done. You know, we have this problem. What are we going to do now? Crikey! It's 2:30. When's the next problem? 3:15. Okay, thank you very much. I look forward to it. But you get round it. Why? Because people say this must work. Nothing must stop it. And when you're in an atmosphere of people like that, it's not work anymore. You know, it's not work anymore. It's a joy. I mean, there's just so many incredible people here, because, you know, when you go through all these experiences and people are still there and are still with you, what's left is a diamond. That's what's left. And people who are not going to walk away because something happens they don't like. A few things have happened I haven't liked. So you think, well, okay, that's fair enough. But it must work. So we get around it. We'll find a way around it. And that's why it's such a joy to be here every day. And
a little note here that even though if you've raised a nice quantity of money through Indiegogo campaign really quickly and have received a lot of support for people watching, and these kind of initiatives need ongoing support. And so I know you've been, and this is part of the money conversation that some people don't like, but this is part of also the reality of continuing freedom and to be able to broadcast. And this happens.
I have to laugh. Because if I didn't laugh, I might weep. There's people around, and they say we've got to make a difference. We've got to do this. That's got to be stopped. Oh, we expose that. And then when you do it, it's like, oh, he's only doing it for the money. You know where I live currently, and for quite a long time, I live in someone's spare room just down the road, right? Why would I do that? You know, to make lots of money? Well, I'm not being paid. In fact, I put quite a bit of money into the station of my own money. It's a funny thing. Well, it's a few things, really. One, some people perceive themselves to be so pure that they will not engage with the system that they wish to change. Thus, they will never change it. So,
usually they're the first one to criticize.
To buy cameras and to rent this space, to pay massive bloody local taxation for a business that is non-profit, to pay for all the things that it's taken. And we are putting here on, we've built a studio, we've got a second studio in the making. And we've got all the costs of doing that. We've had to buy studio equipment, which is unbelievably expensive. We've got it for a lot less because of synchronicity again. But and we have done that for far, far less than a station down the road paid for one outside broadcast vehicle, not even a truck, a van. They paid £400,000 for it. That is vastly in excess of what we have spent to create everything that you see here with the studio and all the rest of it. But people, you know what it is. You know, as I observe people, every time we open our mouths, especially if we're going to criticize someone or whatever, we think we're criticizing or making a statement about the person we're attacking. We're not. Every time we open our mouths, we're making a statement about ourselves. And so often, it goes even further than that, that often we are making comments about others, which we think we're making comments about others, when we're actually making comments about ourselves. People do that all the time. So when people look at me and they think, this guy has left home to live in a spare room, to work full-time for something that's actually costing him money rather than he's getting paid, that he's taking all this stuff that goes with it. No way. There's more. He's getting some. He's putting it in his pocket. That's got to be the answer. You know what they're saying? That guy would never do that because I would never do that. And if I wouldn't do it, then he can't be doing it. There's got to be a catch. Well, some of us get reward from making a difference. Some of us get a reward from trying to make sure that our children and grandchildren do not live in a global fascist Orwellian dictatorship, which we are hurtling towards currently by the hour. So that, to me, is far, far more rewarding than all the money that
That's your juice.
Ever give me. And the thing is, I've said this, you know, in interviews in the run-up to the launch of the People's Voice. We will not take advertising from people that we think are making a negative contribution to society, because that would be disingenuous. And if we don't do things with integrity, if we don't do things with honesty, and if we don't stand true to our principles, there is absolutely no reason for our existence, because the mainstream are doing all that already. And I said, and I mean this, that if we were 2 weeks from going out of business and a biotech or pharmaceutical company or whatever came to us and said, here's £1 billion to promote us on your station, I'd say, no thanks. I'd rather go under. You know why? Because if we promote you to stay on air, there's no point in us being on air. So it's a different way of dealing with the communication of information. And as long as I'm involved, then that's the way we're going to go. Because the moment we didn't, I would say, okay, this is not for me anymore. But when you look at the people that we've got here and stuff like that, it ain't going to go that way. It ain't going to go that way.
So to summarize in few words, your juice, you're being juiced up, your energy, your passion, your everything that you've put together so far, including this, is juiced up by what would you like to see in humanity, or while you're still alive, happening?
Well, when people begin to wake up to a new reality, they change their energy field. Their energy field changes. What they're transmitting in terms of photons, in terms of vibration, changes. That starts to impact upon the collective field. As that impact starts to happen, and the solidity and the density and the programmed nature and the limited nature of the information in that field at that vibrational frequency level starts to break up. As people wake up, they break up the field's density, because their vibration is doing that. And then people start being affected by that change, and they start to wake up, and they start to impact upon the field. And that impact gets more people to wake up, and they start to impact on the field. And we are potentially looking at a curve in human awakening, human awareness, human expansion of mind, expansion of perception, expansion of or increase in frequency that can transform this world amazingly quickly. And when I was told the start of this that there was going to be a vibrational change and it was going to wake up people and act like a spiritual alarm clock, and they were going to see what they couldn't see before, there seemed to me, this told me, yes, it's true. But at the time there was no evidence. There was no evidence for a long time. But now it is extraordinary. Just walking around Wembley, the number of people of all backgrounds, walks of life, colours and creeds come up to me and start talking about the information and what I'm doing in a positive way. You changed my life. Oh my God, I can see it now. I know by the numbers of people that are doing that now compared with what they have been, and how it's increasing exponentially. That the truth vibrations are here. They are happening. They are impacting on human perception. They are breaking down the programming, which is all they need to do, because once the programming breaks down, all that's left is the real self. And so I think we're in for some very, very challenging times, because when you corner something, it reacts. And this change is going to corner that which is manipulating human society, which is manipulating the hunger, which is manipulating the war, which is manipulating the conflict, which is manipulating the suffering. But the light at the end of the tunnel is not an oncoming train. It's a very different reality, because we are the world. The collective human perception expresses itself as the world that we live in. And the perception is changing. We could sit here now and we could have a big argument. It's a choice. Or we could have a nice chat like we have. That's another choice. So our experience has been our choice. Collectively, the human experience is the collective choice. But choice comes from seeing what choices are by the information that we receive. And
it's your choice.
Perceptions are changing, and the world is changing, and they're very, very exciting times to come.
Yes. It's battery time. David, I've enjoyed it.
The batteries run out.
Big kisses to all Juicy co-creators. Thank you. Please check David's work and with his wonderful team and what's happening on the People's Voice. My beautiful co-creators, support this project, support the Juicy Tour. Let's shake things up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Big kisses. Much love. Bye-bye.